Alright, so we all know that Rebel Wolves are a team of former CDPR devs that worked on both The Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk 2077, and they're currently working on a time-sensitive cinematic vampire open-world game. I wanted to dive deeper into what we have seen from Blood of the Dawnwalker. Wait, it's actually not called... I always want to say Blood of the Dawnwalker. That just sounds more natural. But yeah, I wanted to dive into the gameplay showcases, which there's been 2 of, as well as some dev interviews and details regarding the game's setting and player choice and the day-night cycle that has sort of been left out of the spotlight. A lot of the focus has been focused on like the combat and like how interesting the narrative is with the vampire aspect, but like there's some details about this game that I feel like it's been left out of the spotlight. And so yeah, I decided I'm going to discuss those details today. And the first thing to start with is we got to go all the way back whenever the studio was created, back in early 2022, which is the same time pre-production started on this game. And it started with only 20 people, around 20 people, and then obviously they expanded a lot later on into 2024 and then beyond. They have over 155 to 160 employees now. For a game of this, I'm not going to say it's like AAA size, I'm not sure. I think it sits somewhere in the middle between AAA and AA, but with a game of this scale to be essentially releasing on track within 4 years is like an extreme accomplishment nowadays. Like, we seriously might have to look into who's the project manager and all the other managers over there at Rebel Wolves, and maybe we might have to ship a couple of them off to Bethesda and to show them how it's done, to give them a class on how to manage a project, right? My main reason for bringing this up is because we've seen recently a lot of these new studios that have cropped up over the last like 2 to 3 years that are former this and that devs, veterans of the industry, and they go off and make live service games or just something that people literally don't want at all. Like, no one asked for the product that a lot of these companies are putting out with veterans from other games. But it seems that Rebel Wolves, the team that came from The Witcher 3, oh my god, they're making an open world RPG game. Wouldn't you believe it? Doing something that they're experts in. All right, it's just like, I just want to say this, that it's so refreshing when you have an obvious team that's good at something and you put them on a project that they're going to obviously flourish in. Like, I just want to say that that's so refreshing. Like, regardless of how good the game ends up being, I really appreciate whenever you put a team that's good on something, make them do something else, but it's still the thing that they're good at. I really appreciate that. And also, I don't want to keep beating home the point that these are old CDPR devs. Eventually, I want them to stand on their own. Like these are Rebel Wolves devs. These are not ex-CDPR devs. But like, it is important in this case to say, like, the devs have been listening to a lot of feedback and a lot of the things that people have been critiquing or complaints that they've had with like the gameplay showcases, and they've been listening to that and implementing changes, because obviously coming off of Cyberpunk 2077, they had to do a lot of that, in even with early days The Witcher 3. So like, these devs are accustomed to, you know, rocky starts and then having to listen to a lot of community feedback and then to get their games where their fans want them to be. So like, I feel like that's a very important thing to note, is that they're trying to do all of that before launch. That's why they showed basically like a whole hour's worth of just full uncut gameplay of what the game is. I'll list off a couple of the things that they've changed since the gameplay showcases, and keep in mind that this isn't all of them, but I feel like these are some of the most important of them. And it's things like they've added a camera zoom option, and this is particularly interesting because they added this with the Witcher 3 next gen update, which basically like changed how the game felt on a cinematic level. So I really like this option. They also added omni attacks and blocks for people who won't like the directional flow of combat, and this will probably be me, I'm gonna be honest. Like, I like a continuation sort of combat system, and I'll get to this a little later on, like with the whole animation of the swings and the contact in combat. To me, it just feels a little stiff. Like, it needs a little polishing to me. But in saying that, they have taken steps to try to improve the really stiff looking combat. And one of the things they've done is now whenever you pull up the abilities and you activate one, it no longer like just completely pauses the game and goes to like this little cinematic animation. Now it just slows the game over the pause menu, or like the, I guess, ability wheel menu. And that'll make the combat feel a lot more free flowing, just like smoother in general. But some part of me still wants them to keep that as an option, like in the options menu, because if I can get used to like the cinematic animation whenever you activate your abilities, it'll be really cool to see all the different kind of animations they've done for all the different kind of abilities, because I'm pretty sure they've done a whole bunch of animations for these abilities and they decided to maybe go away from it. But I still hope they extend the game to some degree if you want to play in that very cinematic way. Now, everyone pretty much knows about the really cool feature of the time pressure system that's in this game, but I'm going to go ahead and go over it and some of my expectations for how it's going to work in game. So basically you have around 30 in-game days to either save your family, which I assume is going to be like the good ending of the game, or at least maybe one of them. But this is my guess for what happens if you don't save your family, or like if the timer runs out. I think you would need to take out Brensis, who is like the main leader, like the main vampire that we see in all the trailers. And after that, you either have to decide to take over his position and just go a full evil playthrough, or B, you can destroy the like vampire presence in this region, but in doing so you would have to sacrifice yourself in the process. So it's like either you have good ending, right, you save your family, and hopefully like after you save your family you can still explore the open world, or you can go like a full evil ending, don't save your family and like become the head of the vampires, I guess. Or like the bittersweet ending, you didn't save your family, but you took out Brenson and you eliminated the vampire threat. And this time-sensitive objective system, this in the game, this basically like the main draw of this game. It reminds me a lot of Fallout 1, which I've never actually played myself, but I've watched so many long plays of good playthroughs and bad playthroughs that I may as well have played the game. And it reminds me of like if you fail to replace the water ship in a set time, then Vault 13 runs out of water, and it leads you to a bad ending. I guess I should have said spoilers for Fallout, but you're probably not playing that game. But I do wonder if this game took inspiration from any of those Fallout games, considering this system. They've already talked about the games that have inspired this game in dev interviews, and this game's obviously such as like Vampire Bloodlines. And we can assume that even though this is a very different game from The Witcher 3, that still gave them some sort of inspiration when they're working on this game. The next thing I want to talk about was the soundtrack, and the soundtrack is already orgasmic. Like, it will definitely get nominated at the Game Awards for Best Score. It has like this very low-toned violin sound mixed with like that eerie dark melody of the vocals. It genuinely gives me goosebumps every time I hear it. It makes me think of The Witcher 3 so much. I remember like I was watching the gameplay showcase and it was one of those quieter moments, like just ambiance in the background. I turned my back. I was like, oh wait, I didn't know, I must have accidentally clicked the Witcher 3 video. I turned around, nope, it's Blood of Dawnwalker. It's just the music. It gives you that vibe of like very dark fantasy. I'm in love with it. Also, I don't know what kind of music this is. I'm not like a music buff, but like this music for some reason is so like versatile. Like the ability to switch from a calm melody to a very hectic action soundtrack is probably because of how well it's composed and like the sound style. But like for some reason, like every time there's a soundtrack and I'm listening to a certain tone in the sound, it can go from very calm and just like slowly ramp up to extremely hectic, and they do it so perfectly. It's just everything about the soundtrack is it draws you in. It's like part of the immersion of a game is how good the ambient sound in the background is from the soundtrack. And I already can tell it's going to be one of the best aspects of Blood of Dawnwalker. Like sometimes people will just dismiss music in games, like they don't really care about it. No, it's one of those things where music, I've said it before, music will alone make me replay games or play them for the first time. Like I will buy a game strictly for its music sometime. I'm not joking. Half of my playlist on my phone is literally just soundtracks from different games. I also like that the day-night system will actually play a factor in questing outcomes, because it seems like open world games, they just have the day-night system just so they can say that they added it. And this being a vampire game, obviously, it would benefit the game's immersion to have different effects tied to like the day and night. But for me, my own personal wish is that it's sort of like Dying Light's day-night system, where in the day it's not really much of a threat. Like if you're going about your business appropriately, it's not really going to be too much of a challenge in terms of combat. But at nighttime, and possibly in certain regions, it is far more dangerous to venture out and to go into territories that might have more dangerous vampires, or it's more populated with vampires. But also, this is one of the few times where I hope that they don't reward you for engaging with the night activities or the night quest or whatever you decide to do. At least not in like the usual way. So like no like bonuses or exclusive loot or anything like that. And I say this because knowing that the game presents a real problem at night, and knowing that you have to navigate that at your own risk without being incentivized along the way, will make it really feel dark and gritty and a lot more hardcore than a lot of these modern open world games tend to be today. Actually, you know what? I can concede this, because this is a time sensitive game with time sensitive objectives. Maybe at night the time passes a bit slower. Maybe that's a compromise you can make. But overall, I want the game to be hard. The game like this, a vampire game, this dark and gritty, I want it to be a hard game that doesn't hold your hand. And what better way to experience that than playing on the hardest difficulty and really being challenged by the nighttime threat. Now, like I said, one of the main complaints of this game has been how the combat has looked clunky, which I don't even know what that means. The word clunky is used for everything. My point is that it looks a little stiff. Like the actual swinging animation, like when Cohen does that little diagonal slash, it looks so stiff, and the point of impact, it's like it freezes up for it's just a split second. But like you can tell, and it just doesn't feel as, or it doesn't look as natural. But yeah, that's just my bit of, I guess it's not really criticism. I guess it's more so feedback I want to give them about how the melee combat looks. Like, I don't really know how it actually feels. We had to wait until we actually get our hands on the game to actually judge that. But just how it looks, it just looks a bit stiff. Also, people were saying like really weird stuff. Like, people will make complaints out of anything. Someone literally said, whenever they teleport, add an animation. That doesn't make any sense. To me, that doesn't make any sense. You're a vampire at night. The little mist, whenever you teleport, is actually more immersive. People just find stuff to like complain about, straight up. I'm saying something that I actually look at and I'm like, okay, this looks like it can use a little bit of improvement or tweaking. People are just start to say stuff. Oh, add this, add that, blah, blah, blah. Like, I saw someone complain that we won't be able to do everything in one playthrough. They're like, oh no, you're forcing us to play multiple playthroughs. Just don't buy the game. If you think like that, please don't buy the game. Yes, if you didn't know, this game will not allow you to do everything in one playthrough. It probably depends on your decisions. After you get to a certain point, or after you make a certain decision, it'll probably block you off from a quest or a part of the story that was open to you up until that point. But to me, I like that. I love that stuff, actually. It's like branching narratives. Again, you start at the base route, and then you take these different paths, and then you choose one direction, and it blocks you off from the other direction. And the next playthrough, you literally just do the other thing. Or the next playthrough, you do an entirely different thing. That's awesome. That adds replayability. So I don't know how someone can find a way to criticize that. That sounds awesome to me. Like, just now in my head, I'm thinking of it like this. Like, what if there's different factions, or what's considered to be factions, maybe groups in this game, where you can level up or gain trust with them. Like, maybe they're vampire hunters, or maybe they're a purely vampire group that's against the vampire hunters. And it depends on what decisions you make during the day and night that'll end up, determining which faction you end up being with. That right now, it sounds so cool. I'm not sure they have something like that in the game, but like, there's bound to be something to that extent, because there is a day-night cycle, because you can't complete every quest in the game. There's going to be a heavy player choice consequence in this game. Like, there's, without a shadow of a doubt, that's going to be in the game. And I know I am being really hopeful, and I am expecting a lot of really impressive features, but like, it is still important to keep in mind that they aren't a super big team. Again, they're around 155 to 160 employees, which honestly, this is crazy to think that that's on the smaller side of dev teams nowadays. Like, that's genuinely insane to think that 160 people, I'm not sure how much Skyrim made, but I'm pretty sure it was around that. Maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. But like, now that is considered a small, at least maybe like a medium-sized dev team. Like, that's crazy. I do want to make it clear that I do not expect this game to be like a Baldur's Gate 3 level of immersion or detail or player choice consequence. Still, I think it is important to go over expectations versus reality. Like, a lot of people love vampire games. Vampire Bloodlines 2 disappointed a lot of people. So this is probably going to fill that void for those people who were very disappointed by that game. Again, it has to be brought up. If you love The Witcher 3, you're probably going to buy this game. Like, let's be honest. If you're someone who's sort of sitting on the fence, you're not sure if you're going to get the game or not, you're like, oh, I'm 50-50 on it. By launch, I'm pretty sure you're going to make the decision to buy it. Because, like, this situation is reminding me so much of Crimson Desert. Because with that, a lot of people were, like, unsure, like, is this a real game? Like, there's no way this game's real. But they kept showing off more gameplay footage, kept revealing details. More information were being revealed. There's just, like, so much press and so much being revealed about the game that people were just like taken aback by that amount of transparency, because it's not usually typical with AAA studios. And with Rubber Wolves, they've already released 2 gameplay showcases. They have a cinematic trailer. They have another like mini story trailer. They have a bunch of their musical scores on their channel. Like, they have a lot of stuff. They have dev interviews, just like all sorts of stuff that you can actually go out and see what the game is going to be. Like, obviously, Rebel Wolves was already going to instill a lot of confidence in people because they were old CDPR devs. But also the fact that they're being as transparent as they are, showing off as much as they are early, and they're willing to communicate and take feedback and make changes where people see that there's issues with the game, the only other thing they really need to do is release some sort of beta like the Expanse Osiris Reborn is doing. And once they do that, you're going to start to see a lot of people go from 50-50 to yes. Like, even if they're still sort of unsure about the game, they're going to like the direction they're taking with the game, the amount of confidence they have in their own product. Like, I feel like this is one of the biggest things with modern games. Believing in your own product, like actually genuinely believing in it so much that you show it off as much as possible. You just feel the need to constantly put it in front of the public and constantly show themselves about it and release new details and show stuff that you changed. Like, that instills so much more confidence than just cinematic trailers and stuff. Like, for me, this is my most anticipated game of the year by far. Like, more than GTA 6, more than Phantom Blade Zero, more than Judas. But yeah, with that being said, what do y'all think about the Blood of Dawnwalker? What do y'all think about both of the gameplay showcases? A lot of people saw that and they were like, this looks promising. You know, if a bit, again, people will say the combat looks clunky. You got to be more specific than that. But to me, it looks like a very, very promising game with an incredible atmosphere and an amazing soundtrack. So I just hope all the other points hit home. I hope that the story is actually really good. I would hate for this time-sensitive mechanic to be wasted on a mediocre story. I'm gonna be honest. Generally, vampire stories, they're not my kind of thing. Like this, it's not really the kind of thing that gets it for me. But like, you know, who knows? There's a first time for everything. But yeah, other than that, that's all I got. That's it for me. I'll see you next time.